When you think of the film Alien, what comes to mind? The chestburster, the facehugger, Ripley in the escape pod. Iconic moments that still thrill generations of movie fans. But here's what I think is the most brilliant feat the filmmakers managed to pull off here. Long before the monster ever appears, the film has already sunk its claws into you. How? Through design. Let me explain. Every patch on a uniform, every stripe on a sleeve, every hazard label on a door, these weren't random. They were part of something called the semiotic standard, a visual language that made the Nostromo feel like a real ship run by a real company with real people working dangerous jobs. Most science fiction in the 1970s still leaned towards utopia, sleek uniforms, smooth sets, bright optimism. Star Trek promised exploration and diplomacy. 2001: A Space Odyssey promised elegance and mystery. Ridley Scott, though, he wanted the opposite. He wanted the Nostromo to feel like a tow truck hauling ore through space. He wanted the crew to feel less like astronauts and more like truckers. Tired shift workers, the people who keep the engines running while someone else cashes the paycheck. So, he brought in Ron Cobb, and this is where Alien takes a giant leap forward. Ron Cobb is a giant in the cinema design world, but he didn't start out in Hollywood. No, he began his career in a much darker place: politics. As a cartoonist in the 1960s for the Free Press, his sharp, often satirical drawings critiqued government, war, and corporate greed. And that sensibility, ordinary people ground down by powerful systems, that became the DNA of his film work. On Alien, Cobb wasn't tasked with making things look cool. His brief from Ridley Scott was simple: make everything look like it was bought from a catalog. Not props, but products. Not costumes, but uniforms issued by the lowest bidder. He designed ship interiors, spacesuits, and even contributed early concepts for the Alien life cycle. But his most enduring contribution was the semiotic standard, a fully realized system of signage and symbols for the Nostromo. Ron Cobb designed a full system of insignia for the Nostromo crew, but he didn't work alone. Costume designer John Mollo, fresh off winning an Oscar for Star Wars, took Cobb's abstract ideas and translated them into real-world patches on uniforms. Cobb gave Alien its visual language, and Mollo made sure the actors literally wore that language on their sleeves. The ship patch, the rainbow arc with planet and star, was their shared identity. Every crew member wore this insignia, a rainbow arc framing a star rising over planetary domes, with the ship's registry number written beneath. It's bright, almost weirdly optimistic, a corporate recruitment poster sewn into a uniform. It sells the dream of exploration, even as the crew are just space truckers hauling ore. Name patches were practical and utilitarian. Ripley's black and white patch is the most iconic, but every crew member had their name tagged. It's not about pride here. This is simply identification, like a worker's badge. You are who the company says you are. Division patches are where Cobb's semiotic standard hit hardest, and Mollo codified them into uniform design. Engineering was a hexagonal design, rugged and mechanical. Parker and Brett wore these, the working-class mechanics. Science was a blue circular emblem of stacked lines and circles. Ash carried this one, linking him to logic and detachment, fitting for a synthetic hiding in plain sight. Navigation and command were marked by sharp, triangular orange insignia. Dallas and Lambert carried these, marking them as the ones meant to steer and decide. Flight crew carried a red division patch, worn by Dallas, Kane, and Ripley in Mollo's sketches. The winged sun patch was the most mythic symbol of all of them, an Egyptian winged sun evoking timeless power. It ties Weyland-Yutani not just to the future, but to empire and destiny. Then, there's this really cool tricentennial patch. Ron Cobb himself designed it, and his signed production art clearly labels it as the United States Tricentennial Patch, marking 300 years since 1776. The design looks exactly like something pulled out of the bicentennial celebrations of 1976. Red stripes sweeping into a blue star, laid out on a triangular field. Cobb even described it in his notes as a commemorative item, the kind of thing a crew member might wear as a keepsake. It's patriotic, a little nostalgic, and maybe even a little absurd. But that's what makes it so perfect. On the Nostromo, you see corporate logos and semiotic glyphs everywhere. And then you catch this splash of old Earth pride hanging on. It reminds you that even in deep space, people cling to history, to nationalism, to symbols that don't quite fit the world they're in anymore. The genius here is subtlety. You don't consciously register all of this while you're watching the film, but subconsciously, the patches cue you in. Who's blue collar? Who's the suit? Who's in charge? They also remind you that the crew are simultaneously individuals with names, members of a shared ship, cogs in divisions marked by abstract glyphs, patriots of a long-dead Earth milestone, and ultimately, property of a megacorporation with imperial ambitions. The semiotic standard went far beyond uniforms. Cobb's team designed more than 30 glyphs to mark every conceivable function of a spacecraft. Most of these never got their close-up on camera, but their presence transformed the set. I'll describe a few of them here and see if you can figure out what they are. They get easier as we go. Alright, this one is easy if you think about it. A stick figure being squished with blue. Cryogenics. How about a circle going around a naked stick figure torso and head? Or a glowing stick figure that is almost certainly dead. Each glyph was color-coded. Red for danger, yellow for caution, blue for utility, green for safety. A universal language designed to be read at a glance by a multinational, multilingual crew. It was an act of world-building so thorough that even if you didn't consciously notice it, you felt it. You felt the ship was real because it obeyed rules. Here's where it gets brilliant. The semiotics didn't just decorate the set, they told the story. Redundant warning signs create a sense of constant hazard. This isn't a noble voyage, it's shift work in a dangerous environment. By reducing crew identity to abstract logos, the film hints that they're less individuals and more corporate assets, commodities with a symbol instead of a soul. The dominance of Weyland-Yutani branding foreshadows the real antagonists of the series. The alien is lethal, but the company is immortal. Semiotics turned every wall, every patch, every stencil into quiet narrative. The horror didn't just come from the xenomorph. It came from realizing you were just another expendable body under a corporate banner. The semiotic standard didn't vanish after Alien. It became a template for how sci-fi should look and feel. In Blade Runner, Ridley Scott again leaned on Ron Cobb's sensibility. Corporate signage, street glyphs, logos that felt industrial and oppressive. The Expanse uses faction logos and ship markings that owe a clear debt to Cobb's work. Visual shorthand for politics and class divisions. Whenever you see a sci-fi world that feels functional, you're looking at Alien's legacy. So what makes the semiotic standard so powerful? It's not just that it looks cool, it does. It's that it whispered truths about the universe, that the future is run by corporations, that workers are expendable, that identity is just another symbol on a sleeve. The xenomorph may be the face of the franchise, But the semiotic standard is its skeleton. Without it, Alien would be just another monster movie. And with it, it became a world we believed in. And at the heart of all this was Ron Cobb, a political cartoonist turned futurist who never stopped reminding us the scariest monsters aren't in the shadows, they're in the boardroom. All right, I'll see you in the next one.
This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.